Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurs and Fuego. We're documenting the journey of incredible entrepreneurs. My new best friend, Tony Esposito. How you doing, Tony?
Hi, Francisco.
I tell you what, this is Avatar Engineering, by the way. And you develop products.
I'm a product developer.
You're a product developer. You don't call yourself so much as an inventor, but rather a product developer.
Well, I'm an engineer.
Yes.
You know, it's been my trade for over 35 years. Electrical engineering, software engineering. And through the years, in many, many industries, I've had to develop assemblies and products.
Right.
And so I've developed the expertise in new product development. And I share that with my clients.
So anybody that has an idea for a product, they would come to Tony and say, Tony, I got the best idea in the world. This is really going to revolutionize the world, the market. How many times have you heard that story?
Oh, well, actually, more than I can count. But the important thing is that they did come to me.
Yes.
All right, because then I can explain to them is that, you know, anything can be developed.
Right.
But if you want to make a living, if you don't want to go bankrupt, you need to understand the risks. And what I do is not financial planning. I'm not an accountant.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer, though I do many of these kinds of tasks.
Right.
But what I do is I educate and then see whether or not the client wants to go further, because it's very, very expensive to develop and industrialize a product.
So we go to you with all these incredible dreams and these grandiose plans of an idea that we have. But what you do is you kind of bring us back to earth and say, this is the reality of developing a product. And maybe your product is not such a great idea, or this is that what you're saying?
Let me say this. Okay, when I have a client,
yes.
Okay, now many clients, they're interested in making money.
Yes.
Some are interested in just stroking their ego. Now, in my business, I don't bring an ego to the question. What I do is I say, let's look at the numbers. Any idea is valid. It may, at face value, could look very, very silly, or it could look really magnificent. But the answer is going to be when you do the homework. And so the first thing I do is I educate my client and I start to describe, this is how it works. There are 4 big phases.
All right.
You have your conceptual phase, you have your feasibility phase,
Yep.
then you have a development phase, and then you have industrialization. Okay, what that means is, okay, the first one is, okay, I got an idea. Let's kind of play around with the idea.
That's where we're very happy.
The second one is it feasible? First off, does it make sense to make it? Is it viable? You know, is it going to make any money? What's the market? What kind of a business do I want to have? You can take an idea, and there are many ways of selling it. So you have to understand, what kind of business do you want to have?
And Tony, let me interrupt you for a second, because you developed actually a software that kind of puts the numbers right there, right? It plugs in the numbers,
yes,
to evaluate this particular phase.
Yes,
so it's not just an idea, or we're talking about it. No, it's very, very, very.
It's very formal.
Yeah, very formal.
I developed some software back in the 90s. And what I do with this software is I make models. I make mathematical models. I say, okay, well, here's a model of the market that you want to be in. Here is a model of the kind of business you want to be in, and so therefore that creates a model of a company, which provides what are going to be the overheads, what are going to be the payrolls, what are going to be the facilities, all those kinds of things. Then there's a model. Then there's a financial model. You know, you got to understand.
Right.
Well, do I have investors, or am I bootstrapping? You know, what's going to be the net present value? And then from this, I can create a pro forma where I can then show, okay, well, this is what you can anticipate is going to be your cash flow. And it's always been important to understand that cash flow is what destroys, bankrupts more people than anything. All right, they don't understand that they could start off, you know, with lots of piss and vinegar, and after the first year of not getting any revenues, they start to see that they can't pay their mortgage anymore. So
You make the entrepreneur see all
I
this thing in black and white.
I reveal the risks, and the important thing to do is not to paint a picture that is, okay, well, here's the ideal situation, because then I also have an impact study to say, all right, well, what are the kinds of things that when we made all these intelligent guesses about the marketplace or about how I'm going to develop this or how I modeled how to develop this product, what if I get some things wrong? What if the market isn't as big as I think? My sales capture isn't as big? What if my product costs more than it costs? What if it takes more time than it takes? The time's very expensive. What if all these things happen? These are impacts. So what are the impacts of the impacts? So therefore now you see the cash flow change. You say, okay, well, this is when things are ideal, and then all of a sudden if you start adding some of these impacts, and if all these nasty impacts happen, then you can see how bad things can be. And then the big reveal is there to say, well, if I want to go down this road, I have to be prepared that, you know, there can be a really good reward or there can be a terrible, terrible crash of cash.
And you're showing this thing even before
Well,
anything is happening.
Getting back to the four
Correct.
basic
Yes,
modes.
yes.
Concept, feasibility, development, and industrialization.
Yep.
Development and industrialization is very expensive. Okay, that's when we've got engineering hours that are being applied, we've got tooling that has to be made,
Yep.
we've got prototypes that have to be done, you may have to go through all sorts of marketing studies, and then when you go into industrialization, then you're making the hard tools, then
Yep.
you're going through big expense, and then you're going to have inventories, you're going to have lots of things you're committed to, so that's a huge amount of money. The first two phases are called the fuzzy front end, concept and feasibility, because those are the things that you have so little absolute information. You're completely dependent on your guesses. How good are your guesses?
Right.
So I'm here to help make the best guesses to minimize the risk. And that is probably the most helpful thing to an entrepreneur, is to understand the risk.
That's awesome. Let's talk very quickly about some of the things that you brought in here. So you developed this Keurig
Yeah, it's a K-cup stand.
Stand.
And now this is like the low-tech end of the world.
Yeah.
All right. And so I developed this.
But it's a smart,
a couple of years
smart
ago.
product.
And the thing is that how often you got all these K-cups and they're thrown into a drawer, or they're in a box.
Yep.
Or you go to Amazon.com and you buy some cheap little thing that breaks or is just ugly and you just don't even want it on your counter. So I have these in all sorts of colors, also in stainless steel. There's a stainless steel one.
Nice.
And there's also maybe some thinking we're looking to see that might even use aquagraphics, so that if someone wanted to say take a picture of their counter, we could take that, turn it into an aquagraphic, and apply that so that it looks just like the same material as their counter.
Genius. All right. So what is this little thing?
Oh, okay. Now that's part of this. Now.
Okay.
You may recognize this. I will not name the company. You
All
might,
right.
but I won't.
I think it's the taser guy.
Well, okay. Now, this is not my product, obviously,
Yes.
but as a consultant in providing engineering services, I do a great deal of electronics design for companies.
Yeah.
And all the next generation devices will be utilizing the high voltage electronics that I designed, specifically because it will provide a more effective electronic weapon, but also a safer one. And this has to do with the way the nerves in your body react, muscle nerves versus the heart muscle.
All right.
Okay, they have essentially two different, what's called chronaxes, two different kind of timings.
And so this thing.
And so the new electronics will
Right.
provide something that's more effective in locking up muscle nerves,
Right.
and a less effect on the heart muscle, so it becomes safer. And so that's one example of the kinds of engineering service that I provide, is this type of design. Just this last summer, I also designed.
What is this thing?
Well, let me get back to that.
All right.
I designed the high voltage for another name I can't mention because of an NDA. but for an implanted defibrillator, or otherwise known as a pacemaker. So
sure.
I designed electronics for that.
Gotcha.
This is some very old technology. This is about 22 or 23 years old.
All right.
23 years old at least. Oh, actually, come to think, yeah, it's more than that. Yeah, it's closer to 25 years old. Back in the early 90s, I had founded a company that, and of course, this was riding the wave of the communications boom.
Yep.
All right, and this is just a single power unit, a 4,000 watt power unit that goes into a cabinet where we plug in 10 of these. And so it's a lot of power.
It's a lot of power,
now,
yeah.
what this is used is a cellular site. So your phone connects up to a cell site where you may see antennas on a tower. Eventually, that signal's got to get to the site where all the radio equipment is, and that's going to that typically is going to send your signal through the plain old telephone lines or through another radio link. And this provides the power at the cell site. Now, the cell site basically runs on a huge bank of batteries, so that if the AC power goes away, you don't lose communications. And all these batteries have to be kept to charge in a very, let's say, friendly way. So this maintains the charge on the batteries, as well as providing power to all the radio equipment and modem equipment that's in a cell site.
And this was done 25 years ago.
That was 25 years ago. I had that company. I founded
Wow.
that company, and with an initial investment of about $660,000, I developed all the various electronics and the mechanics and all the power switching and so forth that goes into a cell site from a clean piece of paper to the first $1 million in sales in 14 months.
Wow.
So all that engineering and sales all occurred within 14 months.
That is very fast, right?
Extraordinarily. And within the second year of sales, we were up to 8 million. Later on, the entire business, the power business, was sold off to Emerson Electric, which is a huge conglomerate. In fact, I think they've spun off that twice already, and it's manufactured internationally.
You are so interesting, Tony, about all these products, because it's fascinating. I mean, if you could probably bring a prop for every product that you helped develop or co-developed, I mean, we'd be here for years and years and years.
Well, I cut my teeth very, very early. Back in 1980, 81, I was a senior engineer on the space program working on the Shuttle Enterprise.
Man.
And some of those assemblies are too big to fit in this room.
Oh, wow.
So,
as an entrepreneur, and this is, we wrap it up, we only have just a few seconds left, but as an entrepreneur, what's the best advice that you can give somebody that, I have this product idea? What's the best advice that you're going to be able to give them?
well, you have to do your homework.
Okay.
All right. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to get into analysis paralysis. Well, in that circumstance, it's a much better idea to just come to me and pay me to do it, because I'm going to know what analysis has to be done. And right. I'm not going to be from the point of view of, it's like, well, this is how you should handle your finances, or, this is a good idea or bad idea. I'm just going to say, okay, here's your idea. Let's talk. We'll define what that product is and define what the business concept is, because most people don't even know what kind of a business they want to be in. And I've done a great deal to help people to understand that they may have a good idea, but they need to go a little bit further.
Right.
Case in point, had a gal in the Los Angeles area who a businesswoman who does a great deal of travel. And she came up with an idea that she was going to create a new piece of luggage that would help her pack very quickly. And she just thought that would be a great product to get around. Now, there are one of the things I do is patent searches. I have a fixed fee, and I'm usually half the price of any patent attorney. And I know the technology, so I know how to search for things. And I create a report of opportunities and obstacles. And so I explained to him, you know, the idea of just having compartments is not enough. Okay, you need to have something that's going to make money. And the way to make money is to say, all right, well, what if you have a product that doesn't just have compartments, but let's say that it can be pre-packed. So that's where I described, let's take that idea and let's say, instead of all these compartments, part of the luggage, we're going to have a pallet, and the pallet has these containers. And these containers can have different cosmetics, you can have your underwear, it can have all the kinds of things that you have to reuse
Right.
or use once. And what you can do is make maybe agreements with some of these companies, like cosmetic companies or whatever, to say to include that in this, and you have it all pre-packed. And then you sell these pallets that complement your luggage, so that people don't have to pack it all.
That makes a lot
They
of
just
sense.
buy these pallets, and they keep a couple of extra ones, and so they just throw on this pallet and they take off.
And that's what you developed. That's what you helped her develop.
Yes.
That's, and and so she wasn't seeing that, but you helped that develop.
Well, we had to make it a viable product. All right. So ideas have to become viable products. And what is a viable product?
Will you come back and tell us more and bring more props?
Sure.
Because this fascinates us, and this is truly groundbreaking, Tony. And for me, to have somebody like yourself being very honest for entrepreneurs and letting them know from the beginning, this is the feasibility. You remove the ego immediately from the potential value.
Well,
And so
I
you're
asked
just-
them the question, do you want to make money? Because if you don't want to make money, you don't want to talk to me.
With that, you're going to have to come back. With that, we're out.